All right, so we just had a phenomenal interview with a dear, amazing friend of ours and phenomenal coach. She's particularly a coach in the weight loss field.
Yeah. She's one of our BFFs, and she's just filled with a lot of wisdom of having been in a long-term relationship, back on the dating scene in her 50s, and like the rules have changed. And so has she since she was single in her 20s. And so she gives us a lot of life tips, and we get to learn from her experiences in the dick sand. So you're going to have a good time with that. And you'll probably be able to relate to it, some of you.
I'm sure a lot of you will. So, a little bit more about Whitney Kell. She has been honored over the last 20 years with numerous awards and incentive trips from the publicly traded company she assisted in developing as an independent certified coach. She has presented and trained thousands of people on stages all across the country. I think over like 250,000 people.
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah.
From top health professionals to burnt out executives and homemakers who need a little life makeover. Her top values are personal growth, so true for her,
Yeah.
healing, adventure, and fun. So she was recently featured in Success magazine with her former life partner, which she talks a lot about in this interview.
She's a speaker too. She's launching her whole new side of her business, is going to be getting on stages and helping other corporations with her genius. So tune in.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited. Leah and I are really excited because we have our dear sister, an amazing, phenomenal coach with us today. And look at these two. They get to be in person together. Whitney Kell. Oh my God, what a powerhouse of a woman. She has been such a huge inspiration in both of our lives.
Working with Willow and Leah together in our mastermind, we created sparkles and fun, and we got things done. And every person has a different strength and talent in the group. And we allowed each other to lead and pull back. It's been a miracle.
I'd love to jump in because you have an interesting story regarding love, relationship, dating, getting stuck in the dick sand, getting distracted. And you were in a fabulous relationship for 20 some years, really built an empire together. Would love to hear how you fell in love and what happened as you transitioned from coupledom.
Yeah. I'd love to share.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to be here with you both and everybody that's out there. And I think everyone has an interesting story, naturally. The way that mine started, he and I started, was in an open relationship. We're practicing that in our first few months of dating.
First few days, you're polyamorous.
For a very short period of time. So I, at the time, was drinking. And when my partner and I got together, his request was to have a healthy girlfriend. He'd been through another relationship where it wasn't as healthy. And that was his request, which my request was for monogamy. So we had to come together and cooperate on that. And what we ended up doing is having a wonderful coach that he was actually working with in this poly kind of community, that helped us come together and actually argued against us for wanting monogamy. We had, I guess I'd say, flags that we wanted for our relationship, which was fun, sex, and adventure. Those were the three foundations we wanted to build our relationship on. And the coach was like, I don't think you can build a relationship on that and monogamy. But we did. And we came together and we consciously created the intention of our relationship. And it went on for years. I mean, we were together for over 18 years. So each year, rather than getting married, which is the traditional way to go, and I had never had an intention to get the government involved in my relationship at that point. And that went on for years. We created an empire, as she mentioned. We built a company. Lots of, as anyone in a relationship knows, there's lots of valleys and peaks, so much fun. But overall, we were working on ourselves. We were heavily involved in personal growth and development. Name the program. I've done it. Sober now for 22 years. So we were growing as a couple. pretty intensely together. It was, they're magic experiences. And to this day, I still look at him as a great friend and mentor. I'm deeply grateful for all of the work we've done together, and we still work together.
So you guys really like became more whole through your union and became this really sort of power couple in your arena, which is so inspiring for those who who are aiming for that or looking for that in their lives. And then you went through the release of the relationship, and you both did it with so much consciousness. So you practiced conscious uncoupling and released what all that you had built up for 18 years. That's a big cycle to unravel. So what was your journey? What was your process with the conscious uncoupling?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people have that as a concern. And I was in therapy, I'd lost my mom, getting sober, all of those things. And the therapist said, most couples want something to come together on. So they have children. We created a company together. So we were able to ride that wave of creation. And we talked about business all the time. And there was a point where I didn't realize that I'd lost track, that the attention that I was getting was actually business, but I had learned how to interpret it as love. And it's not that I don't think that he still cared for me deeply. It's just, there's a point, and I think a lot of parents know this, where you get so caught up in the parenting that sometimes the relationship doesn't get as much attention. And I would say we just grew apart, and there was no one to really blame. There was just a moment. We were in therapy together, and the therapist, and we'd hired multiple therapists to try to help us learn how to work better together, because anybody who co-parents understands that sometimes you don't see eye to eye on the parenting. And technically building a business with people, a network marketing company, which is what we built,
Is the same, similar. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think people overthink business versus babies. It's kind of similar.
So what happened after 18 years?
Yeah.
Because I hear you often describe your relationship as being like a really epic relationship, just a great experience.
Yeah.
So how do you go from having so many things that work to deciding to move on?
Yeah. And I want to be conscious of how I communicate this, knowing that this is a public forum, and that, there are things that obviously we always want to keep private to respect the former beloved. And so what I'm going to say is that there were multiple things that happened, including we were in therapy. We had been in therapy for quite some time, wanting to figure out how to work better together, which it turns out being not in a romantic relationship is how we work better together. But there was a moment where it felt like a big switch, like those old school light switches where you flip down the switch. Feels like it just turned off. I was madly in love with him. And then one day.
Yeah, that's interesting. Which is an interesting segue into Dixand, because I've noticed, and I've coached so many people regarding breakups, and have been through that breakup experience where it's so hard to get over someone, and you're not over the relationship until one day you just wake up and it's not there.
Right.
And so whether you are sort of longing for someone who's kind of unrequited love, which is more my experience, versus being in a relationship and then waking up one day and realizing I'm done.
Yeah.
This is over.
It was scary, especially because what you said was we were so entwined. We just bought huge property together. We were so invested. Our lives were so entwined, so that, as Willow mentioned, the untying and the entangling rather than cutting was the number one thing on my mind. And I just stayed in my heart the whole time. The man has raised me. I stopped drinking in our relationship, and nothing that I have would I have had if that hadn't been his request. I'd never had anybody say, step up, honey, like if you want this is what you need to do. And so I held that, and I wouldn't have the success, the financial well-being, the health, the physical well-being, or the mental well-being if it wasn't for him. So when we went into this, I listened to the Vortex almost every day during this time.
What's the Vortex?
Yeah. What's the Vortex?
You both know Abraham Hicks, of course. And there are several books for Abraham Hicks. And now I've gotten into going on YouTube and just watching little 10-minute blurbs, which I didn't know were available back then. So I just got the Vortex on audiobook, and I listen to that every day. I go for walks and listen to about 15 minutes a day. And it kept me focused on staying present with what is and staying in my heart, because everything that we had created together, I was so grateful for. And we had a family that we built in our organization with our company. We didn't have a physical family.
Yeah. How did they react?
So, well, I think what happened, we did a video to announce to the world that we had chosen to do this. But it wasn't as much about how they reacted, but how I walked through this experience and how most people want to choose a side. I think it's natural.
Yeah.
It's part of that. It's just part of the ending of cycles.
Yeah, that's really true.
So it was more how I responded in reaction to that. And there were other things happening. Obviously, there's never just one thing in anyone's life that's going on. So there was multiple things that were happening. We couldn't unwind the relationship of business, which brings me into the 90-day detox, if we're ready for that. So
one thing
Yes,
I want to
please.
pause and kind of go back to is the vortex that helped you come back to your essence, come back to your heart, basically come into a stronger union with your inner beloved. And
Yes.
when you had that connection with like your sovereignty, your essence, your inner beloved, that made the uncoupling much more manageable.
Absolutely.
Did you have an awareness to that part within yourself? Like, what were you choosing?
I chose love. More
Mhm.
love does work. And I chose to be conscious and loving during the process. And then he found the book by Kathy Woodard called Conscious Uncoupling.
Okay.
So we both then listened to that and started walking through that process together. We didn't do all of the exercises. She has an incredible program, which I think
what part of that experience with that book and with him was the most helpful?
well, she talks about recreating a new relationship. So you're in creation, not cutting, not ending. When anyone says you're ex to me, I
Right.
get sensitive. He's not my ex.
Right.
We
He's a
created a new
former.
relationship.
When I first met you, Whitney, I had never heard anyone talk about their ex as their former beloved before. It was so refreshing. It was such a reframe of, you know, this is not just somebody that I'm cutting out of my life, but rather somebody that I still love. And they were my beloved, but they're not now. So they're my former beloved. I mean, it really was a significant just perspective shift for me when we first connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we want to highlight on this show is the possibility that people can be happily ever after, even after breaking up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
happily ever after, even after divorce,
Mm.
that there's a way for us to go along our journey, maybe not together, but to do it apart and still keep what works, but let go of what doesn't work. You know, we don't have to
Yes.
hate each other. We don't have to rob each other in divorce court or pay the lawyers to rob us
Yes.
and hate
Yes.
each other and put everyone through hell
Yeah.
to split up.
And when you have children or you have a business or you have something between you that needs to live on, making a commitment to each other to do this uncoupling in the most conscious and kind way is an intention for a journey that you're about to go through. And intention is everything. So when you set that intention, it really sets the whole journey up for success. And you know, I went through that same initiation with my recent breakup, and it was such a it was the most beautiful breakup in the history of all breakups. You know, it was amazing. And I think Whitney had the same experience, and so she and her former beloved have really been able to recreate like what's their relationship now. And so often I'll have couples coming to me and they've got kids and they're locked in and they're not happy in their relationship, but they don't want to let each other go. It's like, okay, well, what you have as your relationship right now isn't working for either one of you, and you don't want to let go of each other. So why don't you recreate, like, what kind of relationship do you want to be in? You can recreate this. You can set the intention and formulate a new relationship. Maybe it doesn't involve sexuality anymore. Maybe it doesn't involve whatever anymore, but it still is a relationship, because when you're family with somebody like that, when your souls are connected on that level, like you and your former beloved Whitney are family, you're always going to be in each other's lives, then you want to do that with love and compassion and kindness.
Yeah, I think sometimes the best questions to ask is, where do we need to let go that is no longer serving us? And also, what needs to build up in us in order to do it in a loving, conscious, compassionate way, forgiving way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just as closing on this topic, because what happened for me, because if you know the book Attached, which, I mean, after the ending of the relationship, I did Burning Man, named the event. I went on a research to re-identify who I was. Because remember, I was drinking when I got in this relationship. He's the first man sober that I did anything with. So this has been an uncovering and a rediscovery, and it's been 5 years and I'm currently still single, but I feel like even though I really wanted to plug my umbilical cord right into somebody else, this time has been necessary for me to really ground into understanding my attachment style, which is apparently anxious. But when I'm with a secure person, it's secure attached. I think that book is incredible, by the way. But the different aspects to what I've had to come into as being Whitney rather than becoming Whitney, which is what I've been doing for the 20 years I was in that relationship.
Oh, interesting.
So here I am being Whitney.
Yeah. And you've had a lot of adventures.
And let's talk about dating for a moment, shall we?
Yeah. So what has it been like finding out who you are at this stage in your life with more wisdom, more consciousness, more
Texting.
self-awareness,
Texting.
sobriety,
Yes.
right? There weren't dick pics back then. So what's it like being on dating apps and moving forward in the world of love?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. It was quite a good questions, a lot to process, and what came up for me because of the addictions and the tendencies that I have is how much he was actually covering. So when the partnership's completed and there's no longer that covering, should you be someone like me who has different emotional needs or things that I hadn't healed because he was supporting those things and I didn't need to focus on them. So I've had an interesting journey, but I knew I wanted to experience things that I'd never.
Like what did you discover about yourself that you weren't or didn't have time or didn't have the wherewithal to focus on when you were in the partnership?
So many things. I mean, that's a whole other call, is when you are in a partnership, and I lost some of myself. I mean, 18 years and I didn't really know who I was because
To begin with.
I got sober in that relationship.
Right.
So he raised me, is the way I like to say it. I think that's the most generous way I can say that. The vacations that we went on, he's a big wave surfer. I've been to Tahiti, Costa Rica, Nicaragua. But what is Whitney like?
Yeah.
Who does Whitney want to be every single day? How do I want to wake up? The business that we did, he led a lot of it. And I am such a good, celebratory. I'm a great cheerleader. I love it when people are successful. I can help promote people. I have a lot of skills in that area. But what happens when that's gone?
Yeah.
What do I need for myself?
Yeah.
And those are the things that I've had to uncover.
Okay. Cool.
Which gets us into the whole exciting parts of dating, which during my relationship, I did have several single girlfriends during that time that were all single. And when I got out of my relationship, strangely enough, they all were in relationship. But what they all said was how much they didn't like being single. And that stuck with me. And so when I was looking for that umbilical cord to stick in and not try to complete myself and fill myself, fortunately, I've gotten into some great personal growth, actually due to Leah introducing me to Linda Cesar, learning how to fill myself with Mother Earth during meditation, rather than looking outside myself for validation of my physical beauty, because I'm 51 years old and I ended that when I was in my 40s.
Yeah. So say a little bit about the challenges of feeling like, okay, I'm not in my 20s anymore.
No.
I'm entering into my 50s and late 40s, that whole period of time.
Yes.
Menopause is around the corner. And now I'm on dating sites because I think a lot of women, when they've had long-term relationships and they've ended, they're entering into the world of love again. And there's a lot of insecurities and self-doubt and scarcity, the fear that like all the good ones are taken.
There's just a whole new way of going about dating that involves technology, that even that can feel daunting and scary for a
Yes.
lot. So
Then you got to deal with tech issues and or the thing where it's like, well, all the men my age want women that are younger, or
right.
all the men that are coming on to me are so much older.
Or
So like,
younger.
how do you navigate
Or
that?
younger.
I was
Yeah.
really surprised that the younger men were quite fond of me and all.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But the availability of men that are my age, because I'm 51, who are in great shape, who have got their stuff together, who have done the kind of work I've done,
Who are hot, hot, hot.
and happy, happy, happy. Yes.
Older children and no children.
Whatever the mixture. And I've come through a lot of different awarenesses as I've grown these last 5 years. Because in the beginning, when I dated 9 men in a row. And I wanted to vlog it, but it wasn't respectful at that point yet to my former partner. So I didn't do that, but I did take photos. I did. And the last one I just want to share before going to Burning Man, and I was getting my hair blown out. So I showed the last photo to my hairdresser and her face went like this. And I'm like, what? And she goes, that's my best friend's boyfriend.
Oh,
Oopsies.
So it was
Wow.
interesting to go through that process of, and the dates were super uncomfortable. I mean, it was, I would call it a little bit of a shit show. But on the other hand, why that was is because my preparation for really being ready to do that was not there. And I think listening to your internal self as to where you're at, for me was very difficult because I wanted that umbilical cord and that security and that safety that I always had for so long. And I only knew sober.
right.
So mine might be a little different than some, but I will say the evolution of the last 5 years that I feel like there was a moment where I've let go of responsibility for him. And that has shifted my availability, my emotional availability, because what I noticed is I tended to bring in men who are emotionally unavailable or physically unavailable because they're in a relationship. And so,
Which would mean emotionally unavailable.
Right.
precisely.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
so
it's- I really see these last 5 years that you this journey that you've been in as like your journey to your most authentic and true self. So a sovereignty definition is to have the authority to make choices from your deepest, most authentic truth. Before your former beloved relationship, you were plugged in, your umbilical cord was plugged into alcohol. That was the safety and security place, right? And then it was plugged into another person. And so now what I'm witnessing you do is really plug it into yourself, to spirit, and to your own inner wisdom that's really guiding you forward. It's a beautiful thing to
Yeah.
witness.
I've watched you like come in and out of well-being.
Yeah.
Like I am 1,000% committed to the well-being, and then distraction happens.
Oh,
and it's
distraction.
like a,
That's always gonna
you know,
happen.
roller coaster of, you know, wondering and what's going to happen, and is this for real, and where does it go next, and
Yes.
how am I feeling about it right now, and all of those things.
In your dating journey, you've had to do these 90-day detoxes. Some of us know that a cell is born, goes through its life cycle, and then dies in a 90-day period. So there is a whole somatic regeneration, a cellular regeneration in your physical body that happens in a 90-day period. And so tell us a little bit about how you developed and discovered that this was the way for you to let go of somebody that you knew wasn't really your next beloved.
Yeah. How'd you climb out of the dick sand?
Dick sand. And what the hell is dick sand? Define that for
just
us.
like quicksand. It's just like quicksand. You just get wrapped up in some guy that you're excited about, and you totally tunnel and start making up stories. In my case, so what happened was, you know, I'd never had intimacy sober with anybody but one person. So it's almost like being a virgin. So
But it was fun to like go a little crazy.
it was exciting to see what I could create and accomplish. But what I learned is that once that deep intimacy happened with penetration, that's when I got hooked. That's when the distraction took place, where I would try to focus on something during the day and then get distracted by this man who had 4 very young kids, which I knew wasn't a match. And my girlfriends made fun of me and they called him 4 kids, bless his heart, but it wasn't a match and they knew it. But here I am, because I was hooked. into the dick sand. And I could feel myself swirling over the dick sand. That's like a toilet. You just get sucked in. And it's very challenging for me.
It's because like you're waiting for the next dopamine hit, like the next text. And when am I going to get the next fix? And I want that dopamine hit of attention.
Yeah. So there were multiple experiences with this, but a dear friend of mine who's very intuitive introduced me to the 90-day detox during one of my dick sand experiences.
Extraction experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how to do the 90-day. And I do this in my business with my clients and coaches as well. If somebody is interested in how to release that oxytocin addiction. So,
Yes, it is an
I love
addiction.
Yes,
Dopamine, oxytocin,
addiction.
those are drugs inside of your
Yeah.
body that your body naturally makes. So, but they are
Mhm.
very addicting. Very
Yes.
addicting.
Very addicting. So just like saying it. So what happened was what I was presented with as a practice was to let go. No more reading his poetry. No more watching anything on social media. I couldn't look at anything. No more listening to the audio messages or the recordings of the messages that were left. Complete elimination. No more talking about him to friends and reliving.
So
all
would
of
you
that
like
emotion.
unfriend them on social media? And
So
delete
this is
text
how you do a
messages?
90-day. If
Yeah.
anybody wants to do a 90-day detox, and what do you call it? A 90-day cleanse?
Yeah, 90-day cleanse.
You can
90-day
call it whatever you
detox.
want, but basically what it is you're taking whatever that experienced person, maybe it's alcohol. For everybody, it's different, but what is it? And for me, it was relationship. What is this relationship mean? Is it healthy? So I'd have a conversation with the individual. I've done it multiple times. And I said, hey, I need 90 days of a break with you. I really want to determine whether or not this is a healthy relationship. And what I'd like your permission is in 90 days from now, if I feel like it would be appropriate for us to recreate a new connection, that you give me permission to come back and share that with you. And, you know, it was received differently by each man. But the bottom line was, I need this for myself, whether it was something that they were excited about or they understood, some did. And I just said, that's what I have to do. I can no longer, and I went through all the things that I cannot do. I made the request to some of them, don't please like any of my social media. I just need that complete disconnect.
Total
And
sobriety. I need zero contact.
precisely.
I mean, what an interesting, Will, isn't that
It's
like
just
a
such a-
great sovereignty practice?
Yes, absolutely. And it's such an epic coach's way of like getting over something or getting clarity on something so that you can redefine what it's going to be moving forward. I just love it. It's so structured. It's a fucking protocol is what it is. It's great.
And you are a great example of someone who's coachable. If you're wondering whether or not you're coachable and if coaching is good for you or right for you, you will do really well in a coaching relationship if you are coachable. And so you took the formula and you applied it to your life. I'm not always very coachable. So I think I would have a hard time following the rules because I'm a rule breaker, by and large.
Well,
But I'll tell you what would sell me is having my own sexual sovereignty and coming home to myself and wanting that to be full here so I can overflow there,
Yeah.
I wanted to feel better. I wanted to recover from that addiction. I wanted to, I knew it wasn't a fit for me. I knew these men weren't fits for me. Now I have one that I haven't completely done the 90-day. And what I will say is that I noticed that with my former partner, I couldn't do it. We still work together. And I didn't need to because there wasn't that dick sand. The hook wasn't there.
Right.
The dopamine, the oxytocin hook wasn't in place. Yeah.
Right.
You were done with
So it's
that.
a healthy,
Yeah.
it was a healthy relationship. So, and that's the defining moment for me.
Good.
Within 72 days, I remember the hardest one that was the most addictive was 72 days. And at 72 days, there was just this release where I no longer was thinking about him. I no longer felt a draw. I was able to release. And then what happened was when he sent me an email and asked me about if the 90 days was complete, I said, it is, but I feel like our karma is complete as well. So I really appreciated him and I thanked him and I wished him so much abundance, but no longer felt that I had to check in. Was this person someone I could have a conversation with and feel like we could come to a healthy new evolution in our relationship? And I had heard things from other people about him and in circles. And I was just like, you know what? I just don't think it's a good idea for me to go back there. Why not move forward and towards something new, get out of the dick sand, let go of my distractions, and be that sovereign being.
I think it's interesting that you started to pick up a pattern, like, okay, those 3 days and a burden lifted. Were there other obstacles that were also a pattern or sensations of relief in the 90 days that repeated itself when you did it multiple times?
Well, it was 72 days with one. It took less days with another. So every dick sand was deeper than the other, or more shallow. So I was able to get myself out of it. If you think of quicksand, how it sucks you in.
Yes. Let's go back. You said with one of them, you didn't complete the 90 days with.
I haven't. And I'm still in his dick sand. I'm aware of it, totally aware of it. Talked to too many psychics about what it must mean, obsessing on it, chewing on it, clear on it. How many times have you both heard about it?
Yeah.
There is an individual who I've chosen to maintain for whatever reason. And when it's supposed to unfold, it will. Although I will say, as we were coming on this call together, I had considered maybe it's time. And would I have the conversation? Because here's the other key is that, do you have to have that conversation with them? The answer is no. If it's not a healthy relationship and you're not safe, absolutely not. You just cut it out, do the practice. I journaled every day. It helped me release what I wanted to say. I wrote letters to the men, and it helped me release.
So you wrote letters to them, but you didn't send them?
No.
All in your own personal journal. So how do you know, like, what's the indicator inside of yourself to know that it is time? You just said you had a feeling as we were coming onto this call. What does it feel like?
Well, I think what my determiner with these men has been is how crappy I feel.
That's a really good determination.
And whether
suffering.
Or not, suffering is true. And there is a certain amount, because I'm an alcoholic and the trauma I experienced as a child, there's a comfort level and an attraction that I have to that experience. But the lack of understanding of why I'm still, because mentally it makes no sense, this connection.
Right.
But there's such a history that I keep wanting to go back there. So I think there's a safety or security, maybe daddy stuff.
That really speaks to Eckhart Tolle in his book, A New Earth, speaks about the pain body better than anyone I've ever read or heard or anything. And so I think, like, there is this somatic, because, we talk to clients all the time, Leah and I, who are like, it makes no sense. Why can't I let it go? Like, what's going on with my mind? Knows better, but my soma, my physicality, the cellular connection in my nervous system wants that old familiar pattern, because that's what I learned love is as a child. And so how do you navigate that shift?
Well, fortunately, I have amazing friends who are fabulous coaches, and
That
help
helps.
me remind myself that it's all a choice. It's a choice whether I stay in this experience. It's a choice whether I choose to move on. I have the tools and resources. And as Miss Leah here said, are you coachable? Am I coachable right now? Is this the time for me? Really listening to myself, because that's what I didn't do for so long. And I do not hold my former partner accountable for that. I didn't have an example, a model of somebody who taught me how to go inside and check in to see whether or not it's time. And so I'm just listening. I'm doing a really deep tuning, not just to the outside, which is that relationship of how it interacts with me on the physical for reality, but how is it impacting me on the inside? And what I found is that every time I looked at a text or read a message, I felt like shit.
So you're measuring and being aware of the sensations in your body. So really tuning in to what your body's feeling instead of doing the whole thing in the mind.
Right. That's the difference.
Yeah. Well,
So what are the tools that you could share with us and the audience about when it gets really hard, when you want to relapse, when you want that hit, what do you do? How do you get yourself out of there?
In the spin, you're circling the top of the dick sand. How do you pull yourself out? I think it's going to be different for a lot of people, but the number one thing is meditation. The number one thing that I have learned from this experience is getting quiet. Even my therapist said, can you sit in silence for 5 minutes, Whit? No, 20 minutes is where he started. And I said, no. And he said, can you start with 5? And that, not just the meditation, this is different, but just sitting quiet, doing nothing, which I'm used to doing, accomplishing, going. Most of us have that masculine side. And I built a huge organization. So my masculine is strong. So that mind is trained and programmed to lead. My body's not. And the feminine allows the body to lead in moments.
Or to receive, to really just be that stillness and be able to let a higher power in, to allow peace to come in, to allow your nervous system to like come and center itself, to just tune into what are my senses? What's the air like on my skin? What's the taste in my mouth? What light do I see when I close my eyes? What can I hear in this space, but also out there? I think if you're really looking for a way to find a meditative mind, it starts with finding presence. How do you find presence? Simple.
Through your
Tune into the 5 senses.
Yeah.
And it'll lead you there really fast.
So I would say the meditation, and then coming to the awareness that 90-day detox has to happen, whatever it is that's unhealthy. Is this unhealthy or is it not? And unhooking myself from the oxytocin hits, because that's what I'm getting, is that oxytocin when I get in that spin. So making the decision to let go. And like I had said, I've still got one to walk through. And what I've done is journal. And I need to be consistent with it. That is a key. I think one of my friends told me to write a letter to him. Don't send it, and write a letter saying, what would you say if you had him in front of you? What would you actually say? But then the other side is, what would he probably say in return? And when I got clear on that, I knew it's not the connection that my heart deserves. Right. My little girl wants to be adored and loved and deserves it. I have done so much quality effort and intentional practices to heal that heart of mine that had the trauma, to be in a relationship with a beloved,
to be healthy, mind, body, spirit, whole 9 yards.
So those are the tools. I would say meditation, journaling, and talking to friends who I trust. Each friend that I go to will give me a different vibrational experience back from their perspective. Everyone's a channel. It's just, where are they channeling into? What is their trauma? What is their perspective? And being able to, being in AA for 9 years helped me a lot with this. And that's, trying it on. How does this fit? And then leaving the stuff behind that I know is their own personal
filter.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what else I've noticed you do, which I think is really positive, is you will look for content that is positive, that is supportive. You'll watch YouTube, you'll listen to podcasts, you will immerse yourself in things that move you towards the state you want to be in.
You. That was the vortex.
You'll read books. I mean, there's
every day. And I do that constantly. The 4 agreements I probably listen to on audio 60 times, and I'll listen to sections, but every day. You're right, because I told you today I realized that I'm going to.
You're always sending me clips.
I do.
Great content.
We get so many clips from Whitney. Oh my God.
Okay, so that is exactly one of the tools. So it would be the meditation, the journaling, the filling. So it's the emptying with the meditation, and then the filling with the things out there that are going to help me feel sovereign.
Yeah. What you're really speaking to is the discernment archetype, which is actually in Chinese medicine related to the small intestine. So the small intestine in your body, and this might lead us into what you do as a coach, which is really help people discern, like, what is nourishing for me and what is toxic for me. So small intestine steps in, and it's like, okay, I just ate this ice cream, okay, there's a little bit of protein in there. Okay, the little bit of nourishment, I'm going to take it into the bloodstream. I'm going to use it for energy. There's some good sugar in there. Use that for energy. And the rest of it is toxic. It's waste. So it's going to the colon. That's what the small intestine does. And the small intestine is paired together with the heart. So it helps the heart understand nourishing versus toxic. So, when you are doing these 90-day detoxes and you are really navigating like, oh, what's really true here? Is this just my pain body wanting something comforting, or is there really some soul connection here that I want to continue to explore? You're discerning, you're making that navigational pathway. And then that's really what you help people do as a coach. You've trained over 250,000 coaches. Like, you've really built an empire. And I think that all that you did, all that work that you did when you were in that relationship with your former beloved, is you were getting your discernment factor like really well trained.
Yeah. What we do in the business that I'm involved in, and as coaches, I think you both are also doing this, where you have them, I ask them, what is your 10 life? What is it in your physical, mental, and financial? Tell me about, if you're a 10 and you're physical and you're in healthy shape and you feel good, and then I'll do the mental and then the financial, and think about that for those of you who are watching for yourself. What's your 10? And then pulling it back to, where are you now? In reality, in this moment, because moment to moment changes. So I'll help people, and that tension, the structural tension between here and there, which is Robert Fritz's information, which I also studied with, but that tension helps guide you to what are the next steps that need to be taken in order to move towards that. And just for myself to be able to move to those steps, I need support, accountability. I mean, having you in the last 2 days, she's been so helpful. She's held my hand. And I think we all need someone who believes in us and says, hey, you can do this. You can follow those next steps. And so as a coach, that's what I provide. I ask questions. I do active listening. I feed back what I heard. I have to practice not giving advice or telling, because I know and have experienced so much in my life. So I really look forward to the experience of these dates too, how I intertwine it in it, whether it's dating or interviewing a client or someone who may become a coach. It's the same process. Active listening, reflecting back what I'm hearing, and asking questions so that I can support them in getting clarity. And so I know whether or not we're a match or my program is a fit for them. I am not anymore interested in talking someone into my program, as I did with someone yesterday that you saw, because I've talked plenty. I can sell you on anything. I can rope you in and get you on my program. But then to what ends? If you're not committed to follow through with the steps to create the results that you want, my masculine's like, I don't even want to play if you're not going to do the work.
Right. Because you want to see it be in service to others. You want to see it, really transform people's lives who want it and need it. It's not fun to drag someone to the table, kicking and screaming.
They're not ready.
They're not.
And being honoring of that soul's own path. It's not my job to drag you in. My job from my perspective is to help you identify where you are. And when you are ready, I mean, I've plenty of people 3 years, and then I get a call. They say, hey, Whit, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And I'm there, excited, loving. I never cut what you can untie. And so I just leave it until they're ready to come back. And
I like that. I never cut what I can untie. It's a good one.
One of the last things I want to share is follow-up for me is the key, because if you think about it, why waste the time reaching out to somebody or connecting with them if you're not willing to stay connected, to show up that you actually do care? And that it's not, I'm just trying to make a sale, that I really genuinely care for you. And I would love for you to be successful when you're ready.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, that makes a huge difference from a coach's perspective and from a client perspective. It's like the feeling is that you really do care about the person's success. You really do care that they are ready to take that next step.
One of the things I feel like I'm the strongest at is discipline and understanding energetically what needs to be removed. And once I can get that out of the way and remove it, that allows me to be safe, feel safe. I'm always looking to feel safe because of the trauma I experienced. Right now, I want to share in my personal relationships, I have a 30-day hold. I'm not being intimate with anyone for 30 days. If they want to get to know me and want to invest in a relationship where it could go somewhere, I'm ready. I'm ready for partnership.
I was just about to ask you, what do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're ready for partnership.
I'm ready for partnership. I feel sovereign. I've had some really interesting opportunities to explore different types of people, and that what you don't want helps you get clarity on what you do want. I've gotten some brilliant coaching about keeping my heart open. The Untethered Soul is a beautiful,
Such a good book.
on that.
Love that. Yeah, it really is.
And learning how to practice that, opening my heart rather than closing it, because when I was young and my father was emotionally unavailable, I had to learn how to close my heart. Or maybe I didn't have to learn it. That's what I have as a learned behavior. So practicing that opening, even when I want to close and protect, trusting myself that I have enough skills and abilities to cry through it, because crying gets the sad out of you, to journal, and that I have a support system in place where I can reach out and help process that energy through my body. So I am ready for a relationship, trusting and understanding that, who knows where it'll go, right? It's not guaranteed. I can do the 30 days, but I did do the 30 days. I did.
What do you mean by 30 days?
Okay. So when I met Greg, by the way, that's when I made the decision. Even when I was heavily drinking at the age of 28, I had slept with a man who came over the next day after I just met him. And he tried to sleep with my neighbor right in front of me. And I felt this disgusting feeling in my stomach, and I was so hurt, and I felt so many feelings of disappointment and disrespect. And in that moment I said, screw that. I am not sleeping with another guy. I'm not going to kiss him for 2 days. I am not sleeping with another guy for 30 days. And I met a few men, and I also wanted them to get a test to show that they're clean, which I just had. And I'm wanting
Of STIs.
Yes, I want to know that I'm investing into this, and so are you. And we're both on the same page, because getting a man to wear a condom is also quite challenging. But knowing that I'm safe and he's safe, and that he actually wants to show up and get to know me, because I've already had my experience now over the last 5 years of intimacy is unbridled. So it's time for me in my life. I want to bring in a partnership, somebody that is truly interested in building together again. So I'm ready. That's the 30 days, is waiting 30 days. It doesn't have to be 30 dates.
Right. It doesn't have to be 30 dates, but you want to be dating someone for at least 30 days before you sleep with them.
And I want to know that they're invested is the word.
So just in case there's any really cool guys out there listening, what kind of guy are you looking for?
It's funny because, you always think that you've got a certain image of what someone's supposed to look like or be like. But for me, it's chemistry and energy. Really, I like all shapes and sizes and colors. It's just chemistry.
Well, let's get a little more honest. Than I like all shapes and sizes. I think you can really zero in on a hot bod, and that's actually really important to you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Don't misunderstand. I have certain requirements of health and well-being. I've done a ton of personal work. I don't drink alcohol. It's not that I have any issue with someone drinking it with me, but after somebody has 3 cocktails, or if on their, whatever it's called, their pages, they've got, a drink.
They get annoying.
Yeah. I just don't have the patience for it. I want to talk about things that are valuable and important. Buckminster Fuller used to say to one of my mentors, Marshall Thurber, what's the most important thing we could be talking about right now? Life is short. I want to be with somebody who's fun, funny, loves life, knows themselves, has a deep grounding in their beingness. King or prince is on
the king side.
On the king side. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we need someone who is really good looking, is in good shape, right? Because she takes really good care of her body. It's important to her. It's a value. She eats well, very healthy lifestyle, doesn't abuse alcohol,
spiritually
loves
sound.
to adventure and travel, and has the money and the success to afford it. That's what we're looking for. You can apply to Willow and Leah at Sex Reimagined. We'll be taking
a date with Whitney. But know that you're not going to get any nookie for 30 days. Yes, deep conversations are very important. So this 30-day thing, this just came from your intuition, from your inner wisdom.
When I was 28, heavily drinking, I was like, I cannot keep, because what I felt was that man that I chose who came over and tried to be with my neighbor was not necessarily the kind of man that deserved me. And I knew that. And I was like, well, how do I find out if they deserve me before I get intimate with them? Well, or I want them, or they're going to treat me with respect. Well, then 30 days of non-intimacy was the answer. And, I was still drinking when I did it the first time. This time I'm not drinking. So I am seeing somebody who says he's interested. He hasn't shown up that way, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. So I am.
How does showing that you're interested, what advice could you give men out there?
Let me say this, any woman or person that you want to be in relationship with, and this is a perfect example of these women, is that I like to chase. Now, that is a masculine thing to do. But what I will say is that if you really are interested in someone, show up, call them, text them, make an effort to go to their events, to be in their life, whether it's friendship or lovership. Show up and see what happens. Don't get so attached to the result. That's the tantric way.
Mm-hmm.
Be present with the experience of getting to know this beautiful person, and wherever that relationship will go, who knows? And that's what I wish for the men that come into my space and want to play the 30-day game, is that, show up, show me who you are, because then that's how we're going to know whether or not we could go the long term together, which is what what I want. And I think so many people, I've noticed on the dating apps specifically, they say they want this, serious relationship, which for me, by the way, I don't want serious. I want fun. I want adventure. That is not going to get me
committed.
Fun, adventure, and sex still remains the
that
goal
is
in the
still what I
relationship.
want. Yes, but conscious. And by tantric, what I really appreciate and love about tantra that you have brought into my life is that there is no goal. The unattached woman, the woman that's not in the dick sand, the woman who's present with herself and is just a mirror. And what did you say, Willow? You said one of the most brilliant things. If I could look at each of these men as an experience, was that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Rather than a potential relationship, they're just an experience that takes a lot of the pressure off of getting to know them.
Yeah, or like having to be the one where we're projecting all the stuff onto them.
Most people are projecting. So being available for myself and paying attention to how, when I'm with that person, how do I feel? How do I show up? And how are they showing up? How are they coming in? Are they showing up with an intention to get to know me? Do they behave in a way that shows me that they want to let me get to know them? Are they emotionally available? And
how do you know when someone's emotionally available?
Let's sit with that for a sec. What do you girls think? May I ask?
Yeah, how do you know, Willow? You've been in the dating space.
Yeah, so when somebody's emotionally available, they have emotional intelligence and presence both. So there are many people who don't have emotional intelligence, meaning that they can't read someone's emotions and they don't know how to react appropriately. But if they do have emotional intelligence, then they need presence on top of that in order to really be emotionally available. They are not distracted by their phones. They're not looking outside of the connection between you and them to figure out what's happening between you and them. So really big sense of presence, I would say.
Yeah, I also think there's something about they're affectionate. They're open. You feel like their heart is open. First, I mean, that doesn't mean there's not going to be some guardedness there, because there's a lot of men that haven't had that modeled of what it's like to live in life with an open heart. A lot of women too, but they're connected. You could feel like they're in their body more, and they don't mind being gooey. In fact, they like it.
Yes. Well, so what I've noticed too, and those are really powerful ladies, I agree 100%, is that they don't share about certain things about their life. They're not open. What I've had to learn, by the way, is the last little tip is for myself, is to pull back. I don't need to dump.
Right. You don't need to hand them a tsunami the first date.
Yes, well, that speaks to being in your feminine and letting them take the reins and being in their masculine. I feel like we have, as women, moved so far into this. We've swung so far over to like, let's be in our masculine and run and drive this train and run this show, that it leaves very little room for men in heterosexual relationships to be
participate.
Yeah, they don't have any room to play. I mean, I see this in marriages constantly, and it's because we as women haven't cultivated what it means to be in our feminine, to be
That's because
receptive.
it's been scary and to be in our
Yes, it hasn't
feminine.
been
Like we've had a
safe.
total indoctrination of going, you'll
Absolutely.
get validation from the world if you are more
Produce. Yes.
penetrative in the world.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned is that I need to put my energy and attention in my womb and not in my heart, because there's this interesting practice that Linda Cesar has taught us, is that putting my energy in my womb grounds me more, but it also makes me more receptive to the masculine instead of aggressive to the
Yeah, that's
masculine.
great.
And so I'm in practice, I'm learning, and somebody who accepts all of me and likes the quirky, fun, wild Whitney, filter free,
Well, thanks, Whit.
Thanks,
It's been
ladies.
so fun to have
It
you.
was a great discussion.
Yeah.
Super fun.
It's such a pleasure. We love you so much.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Remember, in the comments, leave your application and we will be reviewing them in the next week.
And if anyone needs support or wants guidance with their health, there's also an
Oh, yeah,
opportunity.
you have something for the audience.
Yes, I have a free
good.
complimentary, a free 30-minute overview and coaching call. So if
Oh, that's
you want,
fantastic.
we'll
Yeah.
put a little link down there. I would love to help support anybody on getting clarity on where they want to go, where they're at, and what they need to do to take steps to move towards it. If my program working with me is a match, fantastic. If it's not, at least you'll walk away with some powerful tips on how to shift.
And so what do you cover on that private one-on-one call?
Well, I'll go through helping them identify where they are and where they want to be with their physical, mental, and financial health. We'll help them dissect and uncover what are the things that needs to happen in order for them to move towards it. In some cases, I'll do a 7-day work with somebody to see if they can do it on their own. Some people can, other people need accountability, but it's really uncovering where somebody wants to go and if they're really actively capable of doing it themselves.
Yeah.
Cool. So
Love that.
healthy life. Come to Whitney. Thanks, y'all. Love, love, love.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
So, such an interesting time in life, right? I'm really curious how many of you listening can relate to Whitney's story where you have had a wonderful relationship for many years, or maybe you had a crummy relationship, but it just lasted years and years. And now you find yourself back on the dating scene and you're like a new person. The last time you dated, maybe it was in your 20s and now you're in your 50s or 60s and it's a whole nother game. And there's all this new technology.
Yeah,
I only had a short stint in this world. Yeah.
You didn't have to do it for too long. Yeah, there's a lot of 15-year, 14-year, 18-year cycles ending in people's lives right now. A lot of those long-term relationships, divorces or just relationships ending. And then who are you now and how do you present on the dating scene? And ask yourself, like, are dating apps the way for me? Because it may or may not be a yes for you. But if it is, there's a whole coaching industry on how to do dating apps, and then there's a way which Whitney really, I love how she exemplifies this, is she just really comes home to what's true for her. She comes back to her authentic truth. And the way that she navigates that is by getting information from everyone that she cares about and, values in her life. And then she makes her own surmisation from all that information. So there are so many different ways to go about rediscovering who you are after being in something very long-term like that. And, for those of you who are getting stuck in the jaded heart space around
in the
dating,
dick sand.
in the dick sand, stuck in the dick sand, or stuck in the distracted.
Distracted.
Yeah, like you can't, that one's not right for you, or it's not a match, but you keep going to it because you're getting that dopamine hit, you're like, oh, well.
Yeah.
She speaks to that quite eloquently.
Yeah. I mean, unrequited love is really interesting. Like when you want something and you can't have it, or it's like not coming through. I remember periods in my life of really getting hung up on a couple dudes,
Oh yeah.
just
We've all
wishing
been
they
there.
were like, come on already, just like be with me. And I remember like listening to like really sad songs in the car. I play like these albums over and over and over again, so I could just keep on feeling sad and bad and filled with longing, but it was still kind of fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's a
The
melancholiness to
soundtrack
it.
to, I mean,
Yeah.
that's why those songs are so popular, you know, the
Uh-huh.
breakup heartache songs.
Yeah. And they're so true too. And they really resonate with the
Mm-hmm.
heart, It's so interesting, the heart, this is totally off topic, but the heart is the only organ in the body that makes sound.
Oh,
So that's why music, which is sound, has such a deep effect on our hearts.
doesn't our stomach make sound?
Well, it has borborygmus and gurgles and stuff like that. But the heart makes like a sound.
Right,
Has
right,
a
right.
beat.
You can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think oh, you know what else I really love and admire about Whitney is she's really committed to her own growth and evolution.
So
She knows how
committed.
to ask for help and
So
she's
good at that.
coachable.
Oh,
I mean,
coachable.
it's a real dream. I think that's a real skill. I want to encourage people that even if you have issues with therapy and you haven't explored it, find alternative things that will help you feel like you're having a growth spurt out of something that's been kind of miserable or sad or not going the way that you want it. Get the books, listen to the audiobooks, look at YouTube, do the research, listen to more podcasts, and try to get some inspiration and a reconnection to you. I think when we keep on coming back home to ourselves, it will make us a better partner when it's time to be in partnership.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, the closer you are to your own inner beloved, we talked about this on the interview, the easier it is to share that overflowing cup with an outer beloved or partner.
Yeah. When I look back on my breakups, I can always point to like with the work with Allison Armstrong, you do this whole value list and you map out who the B list, she calls it, like who does someone have to already be in order to be a good partner for you? And if they don't have that, it's I'd rather be alone. And who can anyone be? It's just a skill set they have to adopt. And so there's a way of taking an inventory on your values. Everything from sex to travel to families to religion to children or no children, lifestyle, the things that you eat and don't eat, all that stuff. And what I noticed is when you're falling in love, you tend to overlook some details. It's like you might get a couple of red flags, but you kind of just ignore it.
Yeah.
And it's only when you get really committed that those things, they'll take a while to bother you. But by the time I would break up with someone, it was always because we couldn't reconcile a value. Either it was a money issue or it was, non-monogamy versus a monogamy issue. It was always something that didn't quite line up. And we didn't have to have perfection in the value boxes, but we had to be in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
So that's been really useful for me when dating and trying to figure out where do I want to spend my time. That's how I navigated, between right before meeting Matt. Those last couple of boyfriends, I was really
focused on
examining those
what are
things.
your core values right off the bat. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions I give my couples who come, they're having a hard time, they've been together for 25 years, whatever, however long. And I ask them, like, what are your top 2 core values? And most of the time they don't know each other's and they don't really know their own. So getting in touch with that now, if you're in the single space and you're still dating, is crucial. It's going to be a game changer. What are your top 2 core values? What are theirs? And are those in alignment? My ex's top core values were fairness and follow through. And mine are love and understanding, so really, I don't give a shit about fairness. I don't give a shit about follow through. Like, I like follow through, everyone does, but it's not like anywhere near the top of my value list. So
mine is adventure. for
That's a good
sure.
one.
Like
Yeah.
you got to be ready to go on adventures with me because that's just gives me life. I could look like a lot of different stuff. And I think the other one is understanding. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something so important about feeling like someone is doing their best to try to understand how you feel, even if they
Yeah.
don't agree with it.
Yeah. It's a great value. All right,
So maybe by
everyone.
the time this airs, we'll have a cheat sheet on the type of values
Oh,
that
yeah.
you might want to take a look at so that you can sort of rate and describe, okay, this is what, this is what I need for partnership when it comes to money. And
Yeah.
there's a difference between what I would really, really like and what I would rather live alone, or
Require.
I would rather be
Yeah.
alone than with someone who dot, 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 dot. So
Yeah.
yeah, if we get our shit together, I would love to create a cheat sheet,
I
something
have one.
valuable. Oh, you do? Oh,
Yes,
great.
darling. Yes.
Oh my God, we don't even have to work that hard.
Yes. It's
So
already done.
we'll put a link in the show notes if you want to download a really valuable list for you to
Sweet.
work on.
Mm-hmm.
All you single folk and you coupled folk, because it's not too late to get
Yes.
on the same page, because that just leads to understanding when you understand your partner's values.
Enjoy.
Have just a beautiful, glorious, awe-filled day, everyone.
Toodles.
Toodles. Love, love, love.
Thanks for tuning in. If the hosts seemed to know what they were talking about, that's because they do. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.